Good morning, or at least it's a good morning for you. To you, I wish you a beautiful day. And welcome to a new episode of Hail the Queen. I have a very interesting subject today with an even more interesting guest, a very special woman, Rebecca Cahoon. Rebecca, together with her husband, Alonzo Cahoon, are the power duo, as I like to call them, the amazing couple behind Creating Spectacular. And here I want to share something with you. I've always known why Rebecca and Alonzo call their company Creating Spectacular, and know why they call it Spectacular. But it was only during this conversation with Rebecca that I actually found out why they call it Creating Spectacular. And I don't have my notes right in front of me right now, so I hope that I'm quoting Rebecca well. But what she said is, we don't wait for these moments to happen, we create them. I think that's beautiful. And this seems like a beautiful opening to a little bit of, to a short introduction of my conversation with Rebecca. So I invited Rebecca to be, by the way, did I mention what the subject of the conversation is? I'm not sure I did. Okay, so today Rebecca and I are talking about femininity. And the reason why I wanted to have Rebecca on the podcast and why I wanted to talk about femininity is because, first, when I think of femininity, Rebecca is definitely the first name, the first face that pops into my mind. To me, she is the embodiment of femininity. And you hear that in the conversation, you feel it. As for why I wanted to talk about femininity, I think that this is a subject which I'm not sure I would go as far as saying that it's a controversial subject, but it is definitely a subject which is not easy to talk about. I feel there is a lot of resistance in people to talk about femininity, including in women. And looking at my own journey with femininity, I know when Alonzo and Rebecca introduced me to the concept of femininity, I felt so much resistance in me. Up here in my head, I knew femininity was important, but my whole body resisted that, resisting the idea of being feminine. So let me assure you that my conversation with Rebecca on the subject of femininity is much more about unlearning what we know about femininity rather than learning something new about it. As you would hear, Rebecca talks about acknowledging her soul, about authenticity, and femininity is definitely something which we don't need to learn about because it's part of us. It's part of life, just like oxygen is part of life, something we cannot go without. So it's there. It's not something we need to find. It's not something we need to learn. It's something we come back to. If you would like to connect further with Rebecca, I highly recommend you check out the weekly calls, Saturday calls, which Alonzo and Rebecca host every Saturday. The times are in the description of this episode. In the description of this episode, you'll also find a link to my article that will take you behind the scenes, my conversation with Rebecca. And I believe this is all that I would like to say before I share with you my conversation with Rebecca Cahoon. Enjoy. Today, I'm saying hello to Rebecca Cahoon, the feminine half of the super duo behind Creating Spectacular, the woman who actually introduced me to femininity. And when I say femininity, I mean in a very authentic way. discovering what femininity means to me, and not just, oh, this is what the book says and this is what I do, but finding out what it truly means to me. I have a lot of questions for you, but the part that I'm always interested in and I like to start with is how did you get on this journey? How did you get on a journey of being a coach to women about identity, confidence, femininity?
Everything that I've done has been organic. So when Alonzo and I started coaching, we actually were entrepreneurs. We had other businesses, but we had experiences in our own lives. So I probably have, pieces of a similar story to anybody who's listening as far as a female woman. And I was raised in a culture and a society that teaches things very, very different about relationships. I was raised that women are supposed to be independent and be on our own and never rely on a man, and not that those things were ever intended to be a negative thing, but that's the kind of mindset that I was raised with. And in my own relationships, I found out that mindset really didn't help my relationship. So going back to your question about how do we get into coaching, people just started asking us as we went through our own journey, and we were figuring things out on what worked, what didn't work as far as our own relationship. We've been together this August is 23 years. And so and people just noticed and started asking. And so first Alonzo started working with a lot of the men and saying, this is what I've done, this is what I do, and just naturally, organically, a program kind of came together out of it. So then he was working with the men, and where I came into it was I would see these guys that would come to the relationships, and they're just pouring their heart out. And it was kind of funny because I never saw that side. I always had heard about guys are the ones that it's harder for them to stay loyal. Guys are the ones that if they're going to cheat, it's going to be the guy. And I didn't see that. I saw these guys that were so committed to their relationships and they're working their hearts out. And there was things that I was like, I wish the ladies understood, because I had learned some things as well, in my own journey. And but who's going to teach them? It's you hear it differently when it comes from a guy, because Alonzo can say, hey, you need to be doing this for your husband, and she'd be like, yeah, you're a guy, of course you're going to say that. But when another female is like, hey, that's not what we're after, and if you try this, watch what it can bring out in them. So I just felt like there was such a need. And so still to this day, Alonzo is more consistent. He coaches and provides for our family on a regular basis. I kind of do the flow. I kind of go in and out, and I'm a mother, and I'm taking care of our family, and so I work part-time. But that's how I got into it, is just organically, because there's such a need. And of course, this is my belief, I believe we live in a society where there's such a strong need for this information. Our relationships are just so misunderstood, and people are suffering because of it.
My head is again exploding with questions. But before I wrote a few of them down, but before that, I just wanted to say and touch on something. When you mentioned you and Alonzo and the relationship, I must say that it was I was facing a very difficult choice when I reached out to you to invite you to be on the podcast, because seeing you two together is, one of those things, hashtag relationship goals. When I see you, the two of you, it's like, oh, like, who doesn't want that? So I was facing the choice: do I want to have you at the same time so our listeners and viewers can experience that firsthand, or have you separate? And I was like, But at the end of the day, I decided to ask you for separate interviews, because I thought that would, somehow be more beneficial. But yeah, if our listeners and viewers can somehow experience you both, then I highly recommend that to them, because seeing you two together is what actually bursted my bubble of, and they live happily ever after. And after that, it's like, just chill and do nothing in a relationship. But you two showed me that to have that, which we all want, that relationship full of passion and relationship and closeness, it actually takes a lot of, I would say, work, but more it's like an investment of effort and time. have that. It doesn't just happen by itself.
That's why we call it creating. Especially, and I invite the ladies to think about this. When you understand relationships, we're the ones that bring the energy, right? Because they desire so strongly to make us happy. And so what's going on for us, we're going to be bringing the emotion to the relationship. And so, one of the things that I start with is, what are the emotions that I want to feel in my relationship, and what can I do to create them? Yeah, if you just wait, for these moments to come knocking on the door, they might, once a week, but I don't want to wait once a week. I want to have magic moments all the time. And so it's, I wake up and I'm like, okay, what do I want to feel today? Do I want to feel playful? Do I want to feel proud? Do I want to feel romantic? Do I want to feel connected? Do I feel vulnerable? And I connect to those emotions. And then I look for the ways that I can draw that out of our relationship. And of course, Alonzo, he's just a willing participant. He's like, whatever we want to do, I want to help make that happen. So I very much subscribe to the idea. We do it automatically in the beginning of the relationships because we want to wow them. That's the courtship part. You just keep doing it. And then it lasts forever. And then it gets better and better because you get better and better at it.
But you also say that when you wake up, you think of how you want to feel, which doesn't sound like you wait for Alonzo to make you feel a certain way. So what is there a fine line, or is it a difference of how to put that? So when you want to feel a certain way, there's also a part you need to play in that. You cannot just wait for the other person to do to make you feel a certain way. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because I feel like I feel like at least I have certainly been afraid of that. Of what if I do the first step in that? Would he follow? Would he participate in that?
I'm aware of what will draw those things out of Alonzo. And so let me answer it a different way. One of the exercises that I have women do in my study group is I'll ask them the question, what are the characteristics that you want to see in your husband or your spouse, your partner? And what are 10 ways that you could elicit that from them without saying it? And so what I'm looking for is what are the things that you can do that will create a reaction, right? Because everything is cause and effect. If I do one thing, it's going to elicit a certain response from them. So if I'm feeling like I want to be playful and I want Alonzo to come and play with me, what are the things that I can do that will elicit that out of him and let him know? Now he's going to be reacting to my energy. And so I think that that's counterintuitive, or that's, the opposite of what we've been taught. We've been taught to wait and see what they do, and then we react to them. But that's why this mindset is so very different from, I think, what a lot of people are used to, because again, we're not waiting for it, we're creating it. So to answer your question, I do wake up and I say, okay, well, what's going on for me? And again, it's a partnership. So it's not just about how I feel, what's going on for him, what does he need, throughout the day. But it's about knowing how to draw that out in the other person.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, there is also trust in the relationship that the other person will respond to that.
And if they don't, then that just means that, number one, maybe they're not in that place, that they've got other things going on that is, they are dealing with or going, this is a priority for them, or what I attempted to do didn't draw it out in them. So I need a different strategy. Every person on the planet has courage and playfulness and strength. And I mean, we all have the same emotions. That's why we recognize them. So it's not that people can't be that way. It's that whatever draws that out in them isn't present.
I guess where my question comes from is that when I think of femininity, and that's one of the most important things I've learned, is that, in order to feel feminine, playful, all the traits that come with femininity, you need to feel safe. And I lost my train of thought here. That's an interesting thing to happen.
Interesting topic indeed. So there's lots that we can play with.
Let's take a step back until I find my question again in my head. So what is femininity? give us, make it a little bit more specific? Because I have the feeling that everyone has a different understanding of femininity and different associations.
Sure. And I think you're 100% correct. And so I would say this is a very broad general definition. So when you look at as compared to masculinity and that duality that we spoke about previously before we started, is there's different energies, right? When there's focus and direction and discipline, there's also letting go and undisciplined and flow. One energy is very direct, the other energy is not direct and it's all over the place. One energy is outcome oriented, is looking for, and I'm using keywords, it's looking for that result. The other one is not about the result, it's about the experience. So it's that duality of energy. And if you think about how people are, if you step outside and watch people, you can see what energy they're in, whether they're walking down the street and their mission and they've got a target and you can see it in them, or if they're just, on vacation and they're casually just whatever happens and I'm good with it, right? There's a different feel to that energy. And so when we talk about femininity, it's more about letting go. It's more about nurturance. It's about expanding the feelings that are going on, very, very feeling based. And I'm staying away from, there's some people that say, masculinity is all about problem solving and getting to the result and making things solved and go away, smaller. Femininity is all about expansion, making things grow, making it bigger, right? That opposite. So what I've found consistent, especially in people, is more about the approach. It's more about masculinity tends to be result oriented, single focused, disciplined, consistent. And femininity is more about variety, all over the place, feeling, emotion, and flow.
And why is femininity important?
A couple of reasons. As a woman, everything that I'm sharing here is an opinion and a belief, and it comes from experience. So with that, just know that that's anything and everything that we hear is not truth. It's our truth, right? So this is my experience. I believe that femininity is important for two reasons. Number one, as a female, it was like acknowledging my own soul. I had put on a masculine mask for so long, and I thought that that's who I was. But the moment that I started to let go and have permission to not be that way was the moment like I felt like I could breathe. It was the moment like I felt like, oh my gosh, it was like taking chains off. The only way I can explain it is I was allowed to be who I really was. I was allowed to just live life and enjoy it without all these preconceived expectations of how I was supposed to perform, what I was supposed to perform, in the method that I was supposed to do it. And I had been so conditioned that way. But when I started to let go and discover that feminine side of myself, it was like I was myself again. So I believe it's important for feminine women because it's really who we are. And we're not being true to our own nature when we're not in that space. It's literally like putting on an armor that's not yours. So number one, it's so heavy. And you don't even realize, it's like, I don't know, this is a terrible example, but it's the only one that comes to my mind. If you ever have eaten a lot of sugar and then gone off of sugar and then you have some and you're like, oh my gosh, you don't realize what it was because you were so conditioned to the other lifestyle. And then you experience what it's like without. And that's the only way I can kind of explain, just you don't know what you're missing until you've tried it. You don't know what it's like unless you step into that space. And that's part of what I love to do, is help women get permission to just be like, you don't have to be that way. You don't have to, be this disciplined go-getter and stress yourself out and wear yourself out. You can enjoy life and you can still accomplish so much. It's just a different approach. So number one, I believe it's truly, truly critical for our own souls. Number two, I think, actually there's three. I think the world needs it because we've been so conditioned to operate so much from a masculine space. I feel like emotions have been made wrong. If you're not being politically correct, if you're being emotional, if you're having feelings about something, it's like you're supposed to get those in check. And as a result, we're a society that now overthinks everything, and we're losing touch with a very, very large part of ourselves. As a matter of fact, the larger part of ourselves, because we can rationalize so much, but our emotions still drive us. So it's like trying to cage an animal that still has a very, very loud voice. So, second reason for femininity is because I think that our society needs those emotions. We need to care about each other as a society, and you can see that that's absent. We've developed so much apathy because we're just all that emotion's gone. It's like we don't have the compassion. Femininity brings that. Third thing is in our relationships. Just relationships do not have that polarity without masculine, feminine energy. One needs to be the leader. One needs to be vulnerable. That's where that chemistry comes from. I can tell, Alonzo and I go in and out of our masculine and feminine energy pretty regularly because we both are conditioned to do so. So we both have large sides of it. But we can tell when it's been too much in one direction, we'll lose our polarity. And it's devastating to relationships. Lots and lots and lots of the clients that we work with are polarity issues because there isn't the presence of femininity. And more and more women are stepping into a masculine space, and then they emasculate the men. Then men step into a feminine because they want to please the ladies that they're with, because they love them and they'll do anything for them. And so they'll become pleasers. And then the women will lose respect for them because the polarity is gone, because that masculine feminine energy is now they've flipped. And then the relationship, then they lose respect and they're no longer interested in their partner. So multiple reasons why I believe it's very, very important.
Very, very serious reasons of that. You mentioned a couple of times misconceptions about how a woman should be in our society, the Western society. What are some of those misconceptions?
I think that there's been an overemphasis on independence and a lack of gratitude and appreciation for the differences that we bring. So the way that I was brought up, and I understand everybody's got a different experience, but you see a lot of emphasis on, just the women's groups and not needing a man. And if women knew what that did to a man's soul, that's like what they live for. They live to be needed. They live to solve problems and make us happy. The moment that we take that away, and my husband used to tell me all the time, he's like, I have no reason for being here. I mean, it's devastating to hear when we're like, you know what, I don't need you. That would be, could you imagine somebody being like, you know what, I don't need you? You'd be like, okay. And that's the message that we hear, or that they hear over and over and over. I can do it all myself. And this is the man that would do anything in the world, walk through fire to please you. So I think that, I get where it came from. It came from pain, and we were looking for a solution. And the first solution isn't always the best solution, and so I never want to come from a place of making something wrong. I believe that every step is a step that takes us, closer and closer to where we're going. I just feel like the pendulum went too far, where it was like, well, the relationships are pain, so now I don't know, we don't need each other. No, actually we do. We do. The universe has got so much wisdom. It's created this dynamic where we do need each other in so many different ways. But that's one of the things that I think is probably the most devastating, is it's like, okay, well, the moment that I've decided that I don't like you, I don't need you, move on to the next one, or I don't need you at all, and I can do fine on my own. And we live in a society where we can survive on our own. Is it the quality of life that any of us are looking for? No, it's not, because we all in our hearts have that desire for companionship. It's in all of us. So people live longer than, there's so many different studies that show that people that are in relationships are happier people. It's just, what are the factors that get us there?
When you were sharing in the beginning a little bit about yourself and about your journey, and when you mentioned that you work part-time and that you've been, taking care of your daughter, and I immediately recognized in a lot of conversations that I've had, but also in myself, that thing of like, part-time, to look for the children. What about career and this and that and that? So I hear you loud and clear. But again, we're coming back to the question that has been eluding me so many times. I still don't have clear words for it. But again, in order to allow, that to say, I'm in a relationship with someone and I allow him to take care of me. That requires a lot of courage, right?
Yes, it can be.
And you say that we all have a lot of courage in us.
Yes.
Okay. Why is it so scary then to think of like I'm asking this because literally a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a woman who's very dear to me, and she has that quiet thing of like, I need to prove myself, and I don't want to be the one who's at home looking after the children. So I'm trying to understand this. Once again, I don't really have an idea of what the question really here is. I just recognize different things I hear, but I also recognize what you say. I see it in my husband, how important it is for him to allow him to take care of me. So please choose a question in my words and share your wisdom with us.
I would love to share a couple of thoughts regarding that. First and foremost, for ladies that work side by side and letting go and trusting their husband. So maybe there's multiple different thoughts that I have about this. How does
Share
your
them
husband
all.
how does your husband have the opportunity to step up and show that he is capable? One of the things is when we don't let go, the unconscious message is I don't believe that you're capable. What kind of message is that going to send to our husbands? So if our desire is truly to be able to let go and to work when we want to work and not when we want to work, one of the greatest gifts we can give our husband is for him to provide that for us. Because if that's what we really want, then he gets to be the hero and he's creating that and making it happen. If he hasn't done that or demonstrated that before, then this is the opportunity for you to say, you know what, I trust that you're going to take care of all of our needs. And I'm so grateful for the fact that you're going to do that. And having the courage to let go. That's one piece. Another piece is for the ladies who have been taught, and again, this is taught. I was taught the same way. My mother thought that being a housewife was the lowest job on the totem pole. So when I became a mother and maybe that, let me backtrack, maybe that's not what she felt, but that was what I heard growing up, is that being a mother, my mother was an attorney, very accomplished attorney, worked for government. So, as far as having a career, she had a great career. And I was home alone. So not making it right, not making it wrong. Every woman has the opportunity to decide what she wants to do with her life. But if she has the desire to be a mother, if that's in her, then, playing that tape that society plays that, that's doing nothing, that's the biggest crock of baloney and again, it's devaluing feminine qualities. Being a mother is an endless job, right? And we're investing our hearts, our souls, everything into the next generation of beings. The thing is how do you monetize that? And so there's no value. It's like, oh, well, she's just being a mom. Oh, everybody's being a mom. That's not having a career. But if I was someone's personal assistant, which I guarantee you, if you were to qualify what I do for our daughter, I'm a personal assistant times like 20. And so there's value to that. Why is it that we can't see our own value in just motherhood? And so it's just a paradigm shift. It's just recognizing that being there and taking care and doing the things that, again, it depends on every woman, might be different, that carries value. Taking care of the home brings value. The men see it and they know it. It's what's, oftentimes what's been conditioned into our own head. I know that I struggled with it in the very beginning.
Is it then that independence that you mentioned, the myth of that we need to be independent, self-sufficient, combined with the fact that if I go and be a full-time mom because I really want that, but then if I'm independent, then where would the money come from? Is that very, very simplified the struggle that we as women face?
Can be very much that. Yeah. As you mentioned, it does take some trust. If you decide that you're going to stop your career and depend on your husband, then you're relying on the stability of the relationship, 100%. I believe that as women, we carry just as many qualities and characteristics that add value to society. And so, if you step back into the workforce, you'll be able to step back in and add value and do the things that you were going to do before. But also I understand that some ladies feel like I don't know that I can do that. I don't know that I can let go because I'm surviving or dependent on him. And during that time, he's the one that's bringing in the income. That is true. That is true. But the question I would ask is, so do you, and does he see the value, what you guys are doing is contributing to the family as a whole, just taking different roles. So in our family, I love to work part-time. Be a mom part-time. And I've done that the whole time our daughter's been growing up. And Alonzo has afforded me the opportunity because he's stepped into the role. He's the primary provider. And I also know that if anything were to happen, if Alonzo were, God forbid, were to be killed tomorrow, I would be able to step back into a workspace and provide value because I still can, we're still contributors. We still are competent partners. We still add value. We still, develop ourselves. So it's not that we just stop growing. I tell you, raising kids is a very active responsibility. So if you're that kind of person in your career, I guarantee you're going to be the same way, as a mom. And so it's just having those conversations with your spouse, making sure you guys are on the same page. One of the things, and there's lots of different things that you can do to make women feel safe. One of the things that Alonzo did a long time ago was he created what he called a safety net for me, because he knew that, some of the risks that he takes are a little bit riskier. Because, I'm more aware of the safe side, and he's willing to take bigger risks, or at least he was back then. And so he created a safety net. So say, for example, you are a woman who feels better if you have a certain amount of money put into a safety net every week, and that doesn't get touched. That belongs to her. No matter what happens, that belongs to her. If that makes her feel safer, do it. And then she's not worried about, well, what if? Then she can her whole mind can be focused on just contributing to the family. So there's lots of different ways that you can address that.
But again, it ends up to partnership and doing things together, and both of you being involved in, conversation, decisions, opening up. And I really love that you talk so much about that part of the women who do feel like being a mom is what they truly want to do. Because I agree that we don't see that enough examples of that, at least in our society. Of it's okay to be a mom. It's more than okay. It's more than a full-time job, actually, because you never stop being a mom.
And I have lots and lots of ladies friends with PhDs who are doctors, who are lawyers, and they're moms. They're not working. They have their degrees, they have their education, and they chose to stay home as soon as the kids came.
And now that I think about it, that also takes not only trust in your partner, but also, and probably before the trust, it takes confidence, to be able to face the world, society, family, friends, and say, yes, I'm a full-time mom and I own it.
Yes, absolutely. And I love it. And that's what I think is, like you said, true confidence is when you know what you want and saying, there's no apologies here. I think that this is the best job in the world. One of the very best gifts Alonzo could have gave me is to say, you know what, do what you want to do. You want to work. You want to stay at home, stay at home. I want you to be happy. And I was like, well, what do I want to do? Well, I'd like to do a little bit of both. Okay, great. Do a little bit of both. And I have no problem. I have so much admiration for ladies who just want to invest time in their kids. I think the world needs it. I think our relationships need it. I think we need more of those kinds of examples where we can trust and appreciate one another, and have the husbands look at their wives and go, man, she's just amazing. Look how well she takes care and operates this home. Look at how everything's just, functioning and pulls together. I go to work, I look at a desk, I come home, she's got all this. I love that guys are able to see that in their wives, and that you walk in and it feels welcoming. You feel valued when you walk into a woman's home and she's not like stressed out and freaked out and I haven't met this deadline. She's the one that, just makes everybody breathe. So I love that. And I love that there's women out there that are more and more saying, you know what, I can do that.
And, as I'm listening to you say all this, there's this voice in my mind that says, well, easy for her to say that. She has the safety net. And I'm thinking at the same time, would you say that you can have all that with Alonzo, that relationship, that safety net, including because where we started this conversation of every morning waking up and thinking, how do I want to feel? How do I want to bring out those qualities in Alonzo that I want to see in our relationship? Would you say that this is where it starts?
I can't remember where it starts, but I do know it started without a safety net. that came later. I would say that if you're looking for the certainty, this isn't an area that you have a lot of certainty. This is an area where you get the opportunity to just dig deep and trust your own intuition. Even though it may be contrary to what society says, even though you may be like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just getting on this roller coaster ride and I don't know where it's going to take me. But having enough faith and trust in yourself that you'll be able to figure it out. So, I mean, there was many, many, many days where, I was fearful. And what is even to this day, there's no guarantees that Alonzo's going to continue to do what we have mapped out or what we think is going to happen. There isn't any guarantees in anything in life. And so that's why I think it's so valuable to listen to your own heart and soul, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, at least you were authentic to yourself. It would be really lousy to follow somebody else's example that doesn't even feel fulfilling to yourself and still not have it work out. At least this way you're listening to your own intuition, which I tend to believe will guide you where you're supposed to go. It has for myself.
And as I listened to you, I remember once you shared your definition of faith or how you see faith. And I do see a safety net there in that example that maybe actually you can share it if you remember what I'm talking about.
My definition of faith is getting to the edge of everything that you know and knowing that when you take the next step, either something's going to be there to catch you or you're going to be taught how to fly.
The safety net, your safety net, by yourself, not, or by the universe, not by someone else.
Correct. Yes, I truly, truly believe that when we get to the edge of everything that we know, that's where it gets exciting. That's where the next level is. And so, yeah, it's just taking that step and seeing where it takes you. But if my intuition says this is the direction you go and you're going to have to take an extra step, then I just take a deep breath and say, okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's see where this takes us.
It's a little bit of different direction. There's something I've been wanting to ask you since we talked about, relationship, we talked about, owning what you truly want to do. And how does femininity, which is again the flow that we talked about, combine with a career where you say, you know what, I do want to contribute to society, not as a mom, but, by, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being this, being that. How do you mix these two things, the flow and the direction of career?
So, do you cook?
I do.
Okay. Do you enjoy cooking?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever had a time where you were going to prepare a meal, say, and maybe, I don't know if you enjoy this, but for some people, they're coming over, they're all going to come to your place and you're going to be the hostess. So you've got an outcome and even a deadline. They're going to be there at a certain time, right? And so you're doing your thing and you're talking to people and you're making it nice and you're doing all the things that you love while you're creating an outcome. It's a very different feeling than, oh my gosh, I have to have this in by Friday. When you're in your feminine flow and you're doing what you love, you're expressing what you want to in the world, then that expression is what makes the experience, that's the femininity in it. That's the different energies versus, okay, I've got to get this done. When I have, so for example, I'll use an example of my own life. I have created new content. I'm creating a new course, and I'm having fun with it. There's no stress behind it. So it's having the same outcome, the same result, but I'm using feminine energy to approach. I'm doing it because I want to. I'm doing it because I love the feeling that it creates when I put this out there and I get to share it. So it's more of just a gift. And maybe that's part of what it is for femininity. It's just, I'm giving a gift to the world. This is my gift. And so that's not stressful for me. It's not that there has to be any accountability behind it. It's based off of what I want to share with the world.
Even with a deadline.
So it's a birthday party and you have to have it there. I just give myself enough time that I'm not going to be stressed about it.
Well, I see that once again, time flies when you're having fun. And I do want to respect your time, although I do have a lot of questions here going left unanswered. Where can people find you?
Now, that's a great question. Alonzo does all the coaching. I'm the CEO and I'm in my flow. So we're not as productive as we could be. But anybody can always go to our website at creatingspectacular.com. People could come and experience us at the roundtable calls or the 3-piece calls. So we do free calls throughout the week that anybody's welcome to come to. So if you go to our website and go to, I think it's under services, somewhere on our website, there is a link to the different calls and the times that they're at. If somebody wanted to come and experience us just for free, or you go to our website. Now, our website right now is primarily geared towards relationships, but we answer all kinds of questions.
Hi again, it's me, Raina, the host, your host. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to visit our website, hailthequeen.me/podcast. That would take you straight to the podcast page on my website. And there you will find more episodes, you'll find our story. You'll find also my tips about how to make the most out of this episode, how to get the most out of it. And not just out of this episode or Hail the Queen, but any podcast episode you have or will listen to. And before you go, I would like to ask you for a favor. Please support Hail the Queen. And here are a couple of ways you can do that. One, of course, share Hail the Queen with friends, family, people you come across that you think Hail the Queen might be of help to them. If you're listening on iTunes, please make sure to leave us a review. That helps tremendously. Another way to support Hail the Queen is by subscribing or following Hail the Queen on your favorite podcast provider. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. And until next time.